Hello friends. Today we decided to talk about the well-known Harley-Davidson. Many associations with brutal men immediately appeared in my head, and this is no accident. Harley-Davidson, perhaps the most famous motorcycle manufacturer in the world. The company that has become legendary has managed to create a whole separate culture at the epicenter, which stands for its reliable and in many ways revolutionary motorcycles. But, as you know, everything big always starts small, and today we will talk about the history of this brand, 120 years long. William Sylvester Harley was born on December 29, 1880 in Milwaukee, USA. The boy's father was William Harvey, a senior railway engineer, and his mother, Mary Smith, an immigrant from Leeds, England. The migrant family could not boast of huge wealth. According to this labor activity, Harley started at the age of 15 working in bicycle factories. My Dogs in 1901 worked as an apprentice drawing company nickname Split. As a boy for the first time realized that he wanted to create something new, and most importantly, that it be revolutionary. From thought about why not make it so that the bike could ride on its own. At the same time, 21-year-old William Harley designed a small motor. He personally drew up plans for an engine that he planned to install unusual ones. Bike. For 2 years, he and his friend Arthur Davidson worked on the creation of a modernized bicycle, which came out in color under the name Harley in 1903. The bicycle was intended for racing, and assembling it in a small shed. Engineer Walter the Girl, Arthur's brother, also joined the work. However, their brainchild was not distinguished by unreliable designs and decent stocks of power. To climb the hill without the help of the pedals was impossible. Having suffered the first failure of Harley-Davidson, they decided not to stop there, but to design a real motorcycle. At the beginning of the last century, motorcycles were mainly engaged in the Old World in America. There were only a few companies producing two-wheeled vehicles. The guys were just on fire with this idea, and therefore they spent it in their sheds. Most part of time. That's right, in the same year, 1903, their first successful sample was born. He received 3 strong ones. A 405 cubic motor with an automatic inlet valve and a reinforced frame at the bottom, which housed the hinges. A shaped bend that allows you to place the engine low, thereby lowering the center of gravity. This first real Harley-Davidson weighed just under 13 kilograms. Most of the main components were made in the workshop of the West Milwaukee Railroad Depot, where the eldest of the brothers, William Abeltsev, worked as a toolmaker, and already the assembly was carried out in a shed measuring 3 by 5 meters, which stood in the yard of the Davidson family. They assembled all the mechanisms, manually, using any improvised funds. For example, carburetors were made in old tin cans, and gasoline for testing was bought by pints in neighboring pharmacies. The entrance was absolutely everything that could be used as a model for the first Harley-Davidson model served as a French motorcycle completed bud. But just making a motorcycle was not enough for people to hear about it. That is why, when the prototype was finished, he took part in the motorcycle races on the RPR stands on the same day. The rider was Eduard Hilda Brand. He finished 4th. This race was the first documented appearance of Harley-Davidson motorcycles in January 1905. The first small advertisement appeared in the Automobile Trade Journal announcing that Harley-Davidson engines were commercially available, and in April of that year completely new motorcycles appeared on sale, a very limited number. It is interesting that the logo, like the name of the company as a whole, appeared spontaneously, and if I may say so by absolute chance, thanks to Arthur's aunt, Jane Davis, who wrote on the doors of a small damp place where friends collected motorcycles. Harley-Davidson Motor Company, emphasizing the words red in the same year 1905. The first Harley-Davidson dealer Caroline from Chicago sold 3 motorcycles out of a dozen assembled in a barn. After which a team of enthusiasts decided to open their own first Harley-Davidson store, which was located in small industrial area, and after a while they managed to sell 3 more. The small barn was no longer possible in 1906. Harley-Davidson decided to build their first week factory. Today, this address is the headquarters of the company. The first plant on the avenue. Dyna was a wooden building, 12 by 18 meters in size, and in the same year the company hired its first employee, and after 6 months, 5 more people at this factory had already assembled 50 motorcycles in the first year. This year, the factory acquired a second floor, which made it possible to significantly expand production. In 1907, 150 were already produced. The motorcycle also managed to occupy an important part of the market, because this year it was possible to conclude an agreement under which Harley began to buy for the local police. All motorcycles produced in 1900 and 900 and 906 were from the bottom, cylindered with engines of 440 cm3. In February 1907, the Ball of the Automobile exhibition was first shown motorcycles with an engine V-twin 880 cm3 with a capacity of about 7 horsepower. These motorcycles were almost twice as powerful as the first one-cylinder. Their maximum speed was 97 km per hour, which allowed them to even more express themselves between 1908 and 1909. Year's motorcycle sales rose from 450 units to 1,149 units a year success. The latest news only warmed up interest. Therefore, the team decided not to stop and move on. In 1911, an improved engine model was released in the twin engine of the new engine, which was a mechanical intake valve control. Unlike earlier models, in which the intake valve was opened due to the vacuum created in the cylinder, the volume of the new engine was reduced to 810 cm3, but due to a more advanced gas distribution system, power has almost doubled. A year later, the company begins exporting motorcycles to Japan. The US dealer network expands to 200 locations in 1913. Harley-Davidson racing divisions are created, and sidecar motorcycles appear a year later. Around this time, the first Harley-Davidson motorcycles appeared in Russia. One of the reasons for the company's success was a contract with the US military. By the time the country entered World War I in 1917, a third of all Harley-Davidson products were going to the military. Russia also received wartime Harley-Davidson motorcycles for the needs of the front. They were originally used to deliver messages, but it was quickly discovered that they could be equipped with a machine gun and turned into combat vehicles. It is known that in 1917 Nicholas E. owned several Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Hundreds of motorcycles of JD models were purchased by the NKVD for his own needs. After the end of the Civil War, in total, more than 20,000 motorcycles were ordered during the war. Harley-Davidson for arming the troops. In the meantime, the Harley-Davidson model line evolved in 1919 with the Sport model, which was equipped with a 2-cylinder boxer and lower valve engine with a capacity of 6 horsepower. Motorcycles were surprisingly quiet and enjoyed great popularity abroad already in 1920. Harley-Davidson became the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world. Their motorcycles were sold by dealers in 67 countries. Production was already 29,000 cars, and in 1921 a Harley-Davidson driven by Walker's driver won the race for the first time. Having covered the distance at an average speed of over 160 km per hour, which was a record at that time, the Pilot Pig was the mascot of the racing team. The winners drove the circle. Honorary, holding a squealing pig in her hands. For this the team was nicknamed Harley, the Boar. Motorcycles have become valued for their reliability and advanced technology around the world. In 1922, the first models appeared with the 1200 family of God-shaped LGD and V engines. And in 1925, the famous teardrop-shaped gas tank of Harley-Davidson motorcycles appeared, which to this day is their hallmark. The progressive look at their creation by the development team made it possible in 1928 for the first time to demonstrate to the public an engine with 2 camshafts on motorcycles of the JD series. Their maximum speed varied from 128 to 160 km per hour. Plus, these motorcycles were already equipped with front brakes. An important moment in the history of Harley-Davidson comes in 1929, when the Idea model is presented in a figurative engine, which later became known as Sweet. It turned out to be so reliable that it set the price of brand motorcycles until the end of 1973, since in 1941 the United States enters World War I. The production of civilian motorcycles was almost completely suspended during the war. Harley-Davidson created many new models for the Army, but the most successful was W. Its production volumes reached 90,000 units. Motorcycles, equipped with a two-cylinder V-shaped engine, with a volume of 739 cubic centimeters and a power of 23 horsepower, which was paired with a 3-speed gearbox, the W.L model was equipped with an ammunition box for a machine gun, rear-mounting tires with a pronounced tread, 2 leather bags, a deep saddle, a central spring. The roll was extended with handles. Torn back during the Second World Parliament, 25,000 Harley-Davidson WLs sent a visa to the USSR, despite the fact that most of the motorcycles were destroyed. After the war, thousands of motorcycles remained in the USSR. Harley partially. They were used by the traffic police, partially settled with local owners. This is how the Harley subculture was gradually born, into which in Russia it was finally formed in the mid-60s. All this time William Harley worked as the chief engineer and treasurer of the company, simultaneously taught at the college, and in his spare time was engaged in hunting, fishing and golf. On September 18, 1943 at the age of 62, William Harley died of heart failure. He was buried in the city of Milwaukee, and in 1950 Arthur Davidson died in a car accident. But after the main ideological leaders and inspirers of the company brand did not cease to exist, this was largely due to the fact that the developments of Harley-Davidson were enough for several years to come, and also thanks to the skillfully selected management of the company. By the way, today the descendants of the founders of Harley-Davidson, William Harley and Arthur Davidson, continue to hold key positions in the company and actively participate in the development of models, and the business remains the family's first motorcycle after the death of the founder in 1946 became the legendary WR of Sports, which is one of the most successful racing motorcycles in the world, reaching speeds of up to 180 km per hour. And in 1965 another legend of the electric glide appeared, became the ancestor of the brand's touring model family and is considered the flagship. To this day, 1970, Racer Cal set a new world speed record for motorcycles on a Harley, 426.5 km/h. The race took place on the famous Salt Lake of the early 80s, and the competition from Japanese motorcycles intensified. The country was in a fever of the fuel crisis. Harley-Davidson sales plummeted. The Japanese were much cheaper, more reliable, and more convenient. Few people know, but we, the country's acts of rising sanctions, appeared at one time precisely thanks to the American technology license back in 1935. Harley-Davidson was sold to the Japanese sled company, and it was with Harley that they began to produce the first motorcycles in Japan, but true connoisseurs of the brand still believed that motorcycles meant Harley. Therefore, many lovers of two-wheelers did not take other brands seriously. In 1983, a motorcycle owners club is founded, Harley-Davidson Hurley. He dismantled in just 6 years of existence. The number of its participants has grown to 90,000 people. By the year 2000 there were already 500,000, and by 2019 more than 1 million members are in the club from 1,962 to 1,982. Among the products of Harley-Davidson, one could find 3- and 4-wheeled golf course cars worked an unusual year in frames on electricity and legacy in the 90s. The company focuses on improving existing models, but does not forget about new products. At the end of 1990, a new family of motorcycles appears, and becomes impudent, for which a sporty appearance is characteristic. In the same 1990th year, the model debuts Selfie Brake. Senior legendary thanks to the movie Terminator 2 Doomsday with Arnold Schwarzenegger, equal role. By that time, Harley-Davidson was no longer just a motorcycle. For many, It was a dream that Harley-Davidson buyers usually bring to life, fueling the fantasy of a biker's life. This powerful and beautiful machine for many symbolizes the freedom of the open road and joining the brotherhood of motorcyclists around the world. In 1996, Harley-Davidson ramps up production capacity, opens Franklin Parts and Accessory Centers, and immediately after that, in 1997, a new product development center building opens on the site of the legendary Capitol Drive plant. In 1998, assembly plants in Brazil, the first Harley-Davidson plant outside the US. Today, the brand's model range includes 7 main lines: motorcycles, some more affordable and more classic-oriented, others aimed at young consumers who want something more modern and stylish, and, for example, the Taurine family, serious heavy equipment for long trips and travel with windscreens and voluminous luggage jackets. In addition, there is also a line of motorcycles specially modified by the factory custom studio. Its key difference between CBO models is manual assembly, as well as the most powerful engine with a volume of 1.92 of a liter. In addition, Harley-Davidson produces 3 cycles of the most expensive Harley motorcycle was sold for €241,500. In February 2014, at the Bonhams auction in Hungary, and he belonged to Pope Francis, his biker jacket went for €57,500. The entire second half of the last century in the United States is called the Harley era. Moreover, perhaps, this is one of the few global companies that has become a legend, without putting much effort into it, modern provocative advertising. The company claims that in the ranking of the most popular words for tattoos, Harley-Davidson takes an honorable second place. Of course, after the words of the mother, Harley-Davidson gave the world not only motorcycles, but another symbol of the era. Signature black leather jacket, Stella. The unspoken uniforms of bikers and metalworkers. Today, Harley is a huge community of people loyal to this particular brand. In addition to motorcycles, the company produces many consumer goods with the Harley-Davidson emblem. Truly cult. Friends. On this, perhaps, everyone write your personal opinion about this brandy. Like it if you liked it and see you soon.